Squid Game has become the most popular show on the internet literally overnight, and whether that's down to the sets, the acting, or just the violence, it has taken the world by storm. But if you look a little bit deeper under the skin of Squid Games, there are actually some really important life lessons for things that we should all do a lot more and things that we should do a lot less of. And so in this video, I want to share with you what some of those life lessons that I learned from the show are and how we can apply them to our lives. If you haven't watched Squid Games, then where have you been hiding? Have you been under a rock or something? But I'll give you guys a pass. You know what? Pause this video, but promise that you'll come back and go to Netflix and check out all 9 episodes of Squid Games and then come back, because as you can imagine, big spoiler alert, we're going to be having a ton of spoilers in this video talking about some of the lessons and life lessons I learned from Squid Games. So if you haven't watched the show, be prepared to be spoiled. But if you're not interested in the show, let's jump into the first lesson. In the show, we meet a character called Sang-woo. He was the prodigy of the town. He went to Seoul Business School, and he was the one that was going to escape the town and become this successful corporate person and earn lots of money. And ultimately, that's what he ended up doing. He became an investment banker, moved out to the US, but ultimately lost a lot of money, borrowing clients' money and then losing it in the stock market. And so ended up in the Squid Games as a way to try and repay off all of his debt to his clients and start afresh in his life. I personally experienced a similar situation to Sang-woo in Squid Games without the whole death sport killing each other part. In that when I was finishing my A-levels, when I was leaving, going on to university, someone said to me, "Kieran, you've been so good at school, you're really good at business and maths and stuff, you're really going to be a success in the corporate world." Now, I know this person didn't mean it, and maybe I took it in a different way, but I felt like a lot of pressure. That put a lot of pressure on me, because I almost felt like I had this expectation of me because I had good grades and I liked things like business and maths and stuff, that therefore I had to kind of go into the corporate world and be a success there, without ever actually really thinking and kind of decoding for myself whether that was actually something I really wanted to do. And fast forward all of those years, and I did end up in a corporate job. It has its ups and downs, and ultimately I'm still happy in doing that job and my role. But the one thing I do wish is that when I was younger, when I was at that time when I was 17 or 18, I just allowed my mind to explore the different opportunities. What we learned from Sang-woo's and my situation is that we should not let others' expectations of us define and decide our actions. In Sang-woo's case, it ultimately led him down to illegal activity, which led to him being in Squid Game. And so my advice and the thing that I've learned is that you should try and focus and work on those things that are of interest to you, because ultimately at the end of the day, you have to live your life, nobody else. The others might have expectations of you, but they don't live your life. And so if you're not doing those things you're interested in, ultimately you will be just unhappy. And so try to find those things and focus and work on those things that you find interesting will bring you an unlimited amount of happiness. The second lesson is you don't know everything about everyone. We learn about a number of characters in the show, Ji-han, but most notably Il-nam-oh, who ultimately at the end of the show we find out is the organizer of the games, and the reason he's participating is because he wants one last kick in his life before he dies with the brain tumor he has. But that's not something we find out all the way towards the end of the show. And so the one thing that I took away from Il-nam's situation, plus all of the other characters in there as well, is that everyone has different things going on in their personal life or whatever life that you may not be aware of. And I think often in a work situation, we can forget that things that happen in people's personal lives, ultimately, whether we like it or not, filter into the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we socialize, and all of those different types of things. And so it's really important to consider that when you're approaching particularly tough or negative situations. Simon Sinek puts it really well. Those tough, difficult conversations, you should approach with empathy rather than anger or frustration, because you don't know what's going on in everybody's life. And he gives a great example of a salesperson who's been underperforming for 3 quarters. And it's very common, and I've seen it happen in my workplace and many other places too, where someone is underperforming, management go in and go, "You haven't hit your numbers for 3 months, what the hell is going on, why haven't you hit them?" Whereas what Simon Sinek says, and what I think is a much better way of approaching the situation, is by approaching it with empathy, by going, "You haven't hit your numbers for 3 months in a row, is everything okay? Can I help you? Is there anything we can do to help and support you to hit your numbers?" that is a much more constructive way of getting a response from the person and actually ultimately helping to build a path to a resolution rather than just being frustrated and angry at the situation without actually figuring out what the next steps towards the resolution might be. And so what we learned from Squid Games and what I learned from Simon Sinek was that actually approaching all conversations with empathy is just a way to always get people behind you and to remember that you don't know everything going on for everyone. No matter how much you think you're in that person's life, even if it's your partner, your wife, your husband, or whatever, there might be things that people are going through that you're not aware of. And so to approach all of those conversations with empathy is the only way to really move towards progression and getting to whatever resolution or goal you want. Lesson 3 is that everybody has a why. All 456 participants in the game had a very clear reason for being there. Gi-hun was there to make sure he gets enough money to stop his daughter leaving with his ex-wife and the daughter's stepdad over to America, and Sebyok was there to make sure that she could provide a better life for her brother after they fled North Korea. But the one thing that they all had in common, all 456 people had in common, was that their why was really, really clearly understood. Again, from Simon Sinek, we've learned the importance of understanding your why, be it as an organization or even as an individual, and how this can unleash your potential and ultimately help you create a deeper connection, be it with your customers or employees, or even with yourself. Understanding your reason why helps you pull through those tough times, those times when you just can't be asked to get started or continue with that thing that you were really excited about or passionate about maybe 1 or 2 months ago. And it also helps you keep pulling in that desired direction. Having a very clear why makes sure that all the actions and activities and things that you do in your life are all pulling towards that same goal, the why, rather than pulling in lots of different directions and often feeling confused and a little bit disorientated in your life. And so what we learned from Squid Game is that by really understanding your why and truly embracing your why, it can unleash a whole host of powers, be it from your discipline, your will, even your skills and abilities. You and your body and your mind will be able to do things that maybe you didn't even expect of yourself once you truly understand and embrace your why. If you watched Squid Games and were mesmerized by the violence and the sets and stuff, hopefully this video gave you a slightly different perspective and lens into the show. And it's funny how a show about death and violence and kids games actually has some real lessons that we can take and apply into our own lives. And whether or not this was meant by the writer or not, he did a really good job of layering lots of different stories and lessons into the show, which is why I think it has become such a worldwide success. And so if you enjoyed this type of content, you might also want to check out my video on how to live life in the slow lane, which will be linked somewhere up here, where you can learn some practical tips about how to move your life out of the fast, crazy lane and into the slow lane, but still succeed. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.